Okay everyone, welcome back to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which may be a surprise because we've finished Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you may think. But actually what I am doing here is we're going to try out the Discovery Tour. So I thought I would do a special little extra add-on, epilogue, whatever, video that just had us going through the Discovery Tour a bit and seeing what that's all about. It sounds, from what I've read of it, that like there is tons of stuff in there. So I don't think we're going to get through, you know, a significant part of it today. But it sounds fairly modular. Like there's, you know, bits about war and politics and life in general and so on. So, you know, you can kind of pick little vignettes from that, I suppose. Yeah, so I'm doing this as a little standalone video that I'm going to add to the playlist and so on. It's just going to go up on YouTube. I don't know if I can even upload it to the upload section of Twitch anymore. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but definitely going to be on YouTube. So yeah, we'll and it's only going to be one video as well. I'm not going to do loads of them, but I just wanted to do it and see what this is about and discover what the Discovery Tour is and figure it out while we're going along. So let's have a go. No idea what to expect here either, so I think it's something about you're being kind of guided along by characters or something, but time tunnel. That's a major is named after Callisto, the nymph hero changed into a bear out of revenge, and Zeus transformed into a constellation after her death. Cool, we've already got like educational hints here as well, that's pretty neat. Like these aren't in the main game. War provided an income for the poor, but was an expense for the rich. Has that ever changed? Like, moon. Yep, great, so good astronomers. Didn't quite get everything right, but wow. Hidden in dog collars. Now let's see what this is about. Not many Spartan ones then, apparently.
Here, visitor. You are about to embark on a journey of discovery through the rich and fascinating history of classical Greece. You'll become fully immersed in the painstakingly detailed world built for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which you are free to explore at your own pace, without any danger or time pressure. For a directed experience, take one of the many guided tours curated by prominent historians and archaeologists. Along the way, exchange words with some of Greece's most famous historical persons. The classical Greece you are about to explore is at the peak of its glory. This period is synonymous with grand accomplishments of the physical and the mental. Architectural marvels which still stand today dot its landscape, while towering achievements in philosophy, political systems, and art still influence our modern society in profound ways. We hope you become engrossed in the dazzling riches of ancient Greece and welcome you to your visit.
Nice. Nope. Hello. Who am I? I appear to be Cassandra. Okay. And oh, who we got here, eh? It's Aspasia, I believe. So, explore the glorious Acropolis of Athens and experience the sacred landmarks within. Stations 9, estimated time 25 minutes. Okay. Hang on, let's duck out a little bit here. So, whoops. Can we? I guess, I mean, we're free to go wherever we want and see if there's anyone else, unless we have to do this one, but I don't know if there's a map mode here. Oh, there is. Oh, this is a whole different thing. Map pack, show tours or discovery sites. See what we're looking for. Oh. Okay. So we still got all our I keep forgetting what they're called, vantage points, whatever. We've still got those. Stira not got one? Like, really? Somebody else's pictures, so we don't want that. Karos. Perfume, daily life. Huh. Okay, so yeah, we got a whole bunch of things going on here. Tours, urban, household, whole loads of daily life things. What are the options here? Oh, that's just our options. Famous cities, battles and wars. Ooh, that could be fun. I gotta admit, I'm more interested in the whole history, as in the cities and the geography and the battles that they fought and all that stuff, than daily life and so on. But I mean, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know that much about that, so character selection, interpretation of pirate regalia. Alexios. It's Phoebe. A young boy. Amphusa, fictional courtesan and friend to Alcibiades. Oh, interesting. Greek tough guy. And we got a blacksmith. Oh my god, there's so many people. Hang on, Marini. Brasilas. This is who you can be? Archidamos. Oh, I got his name right. Alcibiades. I really hope they've got something about him in here. Socrates, Pythagoras, big into triangles. Pericles. Oh, it also shows you who's real and who isn't. Okay. So fictional, right, obviously, but all these people are real. Was Praxilla real? Oh, she was. Huh. I wondered if she was real. She was the poet. The one with the lyre. Sophocles was also real. Interesting. Average soldier guy. Loves how strong his armor makes him feel. Fights for the glory of his city. Never skips leg day. Longs to get out of the house more often. I wish he was here at a symposium right now. Oh, here's Phoebe. Okay. We actually have Phoebe in here. Oh, that's so cool. Layla Hassan. Cassandra as Artemis. Minotaur fraud. Don't be fooled by his elaborate mask and imposing moo. Armor inspired by the myth of Achilles. Kira. Who is Kira? Victoria Bibbo. Oh, she's from the future. What is this? Cassandra Athenian war hero? Better have a female version of Spartan war hero here. Come on. Demos. Oh, so funnily enough, I've been running around in the Demigod armor, which actually is the armor that she would be wearing if she was Demos. Huh. Okay, I mean these are all like we can't get these yet, but I just want to see what this is all, what we got here. We got Alexios Immortal, huh? So that's a bit annoying that you can't be a Spartan Cassandra. All right, well, fine. Let's go with this then, and then we got mounts as well. Phobos. Pale Horse. And then what we got? Mycenian? Or I never know how you pronounce that. Mycenian. A whole bunch of horses. Did I have the fangs thing? I think I had the fangs skin, didn't I? I don't think it was just a pale horse, was it? Maybe it was a pale horse. Oh, this mount somehow enjoys being on rocking boats as much as running on dry land. Unicorn. Hourglass. Adorned with the symbols of the Titan Kronos, this mount will serve faithfully until the end of time. Oh, blimey, we've got Pegasus in there as well. And then Flamey Horse. Cool. That's pretty neat. And then Minoan Civilization, Herodotus, Pericles, Peloponnesian War. So like, you can actually pick this. Ooh. And then controls are just as normal, I think. I got first person view. Interesting. I don't think we had that in the main game, did we? Well, and the consequences. Let's dive into the Peloponnesian War one. I see. Right. So I'm assuming you can just wander around anyway. That nothing was sealed off with walls or whatever. But yeah, it looks like it teleports you where you need to go. But yeah, let's have a look at the Peloponnesian Wars, because I find those rather interesting. Oh, there you go. That's where panic comes from. I never twigged that. Huh. Oh wow. Weren't even supposed to have money. Alright. So are we just doing Amphipolis? Apparently we are. Alright. And I believe, is that Herodotus? Hi. Please do. Let's have a go at this. Lead on.
Welcome to Amphipolis, traveler.
Hi, Herodotus. Remember me? Oh no, hang on, you forgot me now. Who are you then?
My name is Herodotus, and I am a traveler from Halicarnassus. I retrace the cause of various events, such as wars and great calamities. I describe what I see and record what I'm told, all with the aim of providing a better understanding of why these things occur. Look for me to introduce you to many sites.
Cool, a guided tour by Herodotus. So what do you think of this place?
The Battle of Amphipolis was surely an interesting one. One might even call it anticlimactic. But that does not mean it wasn't important in the greater scheme of the Peloponnesian War.
Okay. Can we get the whole Peloponnesian War overview here, or is it just one place? I mean, maybe it's just one thing, I don't know, but...
The
let's
city
start.
of Amphipolis was the site of one of the more unique battles of the Peloponnesian War. Two generals, the Athenian Cleon and the Spartan Brasidas, fought for this land in an effort to control the resources it provided. In the end, though, neither got what they wanted.
No.
Look for me when you finish your visit, and we can speak of what you've learned.
Cool. Neato. So, like, we just go up to this spot then?
The land that would come to be known as Amphipolis was originally part of Thrace, a region inhabited by formidable semi-nomadic horsemen. Thrace was rich in gold and silver mines. It was surrounded by lush forests, making it very attractive to outside parties like Greece and Persia. By 513 BCE, Persia had managed to conquer much of Thrace. But after their defeat in 479 BCE, Athens made a play for the land. They conquered the nearby island of Thasos in 465 BCE, but the military prowess of the Thracian riders kept them out of the country's interior. It was only in 436 BCE that Athens established a solid foothold in Thrace with the founding of Amphipolis, a city on the banks of the river Strymon.
Oh, look. Oh, you actually got photos. Nice. Ah, cool. Play audio. Play audio.
The land that would come to be known as Amphipolis was originally part of Thrace,
Oh,
a
we just
region
did that. Sorry, we just did that, but I thought it was just to read out the text, but apparently not. But, okay, so... in 513 BCE, the Persians controlled the mines in the region of Thrace, which I'm pretty sure was called Thracia, and imposed a silver tribute on the resident Greeks and Thracian tribes. After the Persians' defeat in 480-479 BCE, Athens took advantage of the strength of its naval fleet to try to conquer and control the region's mines themselves. In 465 BCE, they besieged nearby island of Vassos and forced the city to surrender. Later on, in 436 BCE, the Athenians founded the city of Amphipolis in Thrace, giving them a foothold in the resource-rich region. So it's kind of like what she was said, but phrased slightly differently. Cool. It's kind of weird looking at it like now, isn't it? Like, looks all peaceful. So I thought Herodotus would just sort of show us around here, but like, can we explore and look at stuff? Like, are there any other things around? Guess we can have a look at things. We can't kind of investigate stuff and reveal things. It just looks like it's leaving footprints. I'm leaving some kind of footprints. Maybe? Or something? I don't know what that is. Okay. Well, oh yeah, I thought Herodotus would show us around, but I'm guessing he's going to meet us at the end and we're just going to get narrated at. Olive? No. Okay, damn it. Right.
During the Peloponnesian War, the Spartan general Brasidas sought a way to subvert Athenian power across the Greek world. He set his sights on capturing the coast of Thrace, hoping to seize the resources the area provided. Brasidas knew that many of the Greeks living in Thrace hated the greed and brutality of their Athenian neighbors and decided to take advantage of the situation. He set off on an expedition to Amphipolis, accompanied by 1,000 hoplites and 700 helots, and arrived before the city in the winter of 424 BCE.
Log jam of ships there.
At Amphipolis' ramparts, Brasidas announced that he preferred to take the city peacefully, and promised to allow safe passage to any inhabitants who wished to leave, in addition to sparing those who wanted to cooperate. This proposal was well received by the city's residents, and he was able to capture Amphipolis without striking a single blow.
This is pretty smart, really. Brasidas' army was made up of men who signed onto his expedition voluntarily. However, the soldiers also received a misthos, which was an allowance that was paid to them in silver. In the 4th century BCE, the term misthios was used to refer to mercenaries who fought for monetary compensation. What's this? That's from the John Paul Getty Museum. Peltas depicted on shield of a hoplite, seen from an Attic red figure Kilix. Which is what I guess is that one of those vase things or amphora things. So I think the Peltas were, if they weren't archers, they were like lighter, more mobile, I think, infantry types. Cool. So this is neat. You just basically wander around and get toured at, essentially, and you come away learning something.
Brasidas' march on Amphipolis blindsided the Athenians. By the time they heard the news and dispatched the general Thucydides to defend Amphipolis, Brasidas had already rallied several nearby cities to help him defend the region from Athens' so-called tyranny. After half a day's journey from Thasos, Thucydides arrived at the port of Aeon, but was unable to retake Amphipolis. Athens held Thucydides responsible for the loss of Amphipolis and forced the general into exile. In spite of Brasidas' achievements, Sparta did not send him reinforcements, which forced the general to negotiate a truce with Athens to hold on to the ground he gained.
I think by this point, I think Sparta was kind of getting a bit worn out with all the war as well. So they're like, kind of, yeah, he's just rampaging around the north up there. Like, but, and it's cool, but officially we're kind of done here with the main war in the south. So they kind of just let him go, basically. Also, the slightly annoying thing about this seems to be like the narrator is, I don't know if she's pronouncing things wrong or just differently. Maybe they're right and it's differently to what how the game's been pronouncing those things, but it's like a little bit jarring. That's a bit of a shame. Right, so in the 8th century BCE, silver and gold mines were discovered in the region of Thrace, piquing the interests of both the Thracians and the Greeks. The discovery had significant impact on the region's population and political organization. The Thracians had the slaves necessary to mine resources, but they lacked experts and technicians to do so efficiently. Fortunately for them, the Greeks had mining expertise they required, as well as wine, which was very appreciated by the Thracians. An alliance was born, and Thracians and Greeks lived and worked together to profit off the land's rich resources. Okay, so interesting. So and also Thucydides here, I think I'm reasonably sure it's the same Thucydides that wrote the history, like the whole history of the Peloponnesian War. It may be in somebody with the same name, I don't know. Like what I was reading, admittedly not in Thucydides' book, but in the Song of Wrath book by Lendon, but it seemed to imply that it was the same guy. What's this one? Chug.
The matter of how to deal with Amphipolis divided Athens. The politician Nicias, as well as the city of Sparta, hoped that peace could be negotiated. However, the popular Athenian statesman and general Cleon wanted to continue fighting the war. Indecision continued until 422 BCE, when Cleon was elected as one of Athens' strategists. This decision made it clear that the city's people were in favor of war. The truce was ended, and Cleon began his journey to Amphipolis, retaking small towns that had been conquered by Brasidas along the way. On arriving at the port of Aeon, Cleon requested troops from the king of Macedonia. He also hired several Thracian mercenaries to bolster his force's numbers. Afterwards, all Cleon could do was wait for the remainder of his reinforcements.
Yeah, he was a bit of a warmonger, really. In fact, I think it's Cleon and Brasidas were really the main ones who wanted to keep fighting. From the impression that I was getting from the books that I was reading about it. Black figure Hydria. Oh, hey, we got Icarus. With scenes of soldier and horseman. Ping. So this is a Hydria, is it? Ion was a port located around 5 kilometers from Amphipolis, possibly built by the Parians. It eventually became the residence of a Persian governor. Despite the Persians' general retreat from the region in 480 BCE, a Persian garrison remained in Ion until 476. This was when Athens laid siege to the port in the hopes of gaining access to the area's mines, forests, and hinterlands. The Athenian general leading the siege offered the Persians the chance to freely withdraw, but the offer wasn't accepted. According to Herodotus, when the Persians ran out of food, their commander Boges killed his wife, children, concubines, and servants, dumped Ion's riches into the water, and then threw himself into the raging flames of a giant pyre. Afterwards, the Athenians occupied Ion, but they were unable to exploit the nearby mines until the construction of Amphipolis decades later. Wow. That's, okay, that's kind of extreme there. I guess they just really want to hold on to it. Favorite verb. Cool. So is Herodotus going to test us?
While they waited, the Athenian forces began to resent Cleon's hesitation to attack. They saw him as soft and incompetent, especially compared to their opponent, Brasidas. Sensing the tension, Cleon decided to act without waiting for reinforcements to arrive. He set out from the port of Aeon to observe Amphipolis, setting up a camp on a nearby hill. To Cleon's surprise, Amphipolis appeared to be completely unprotected, with no guards stationed at the city's gates and ramparts. However, the city's lack of protection was only an illusion. Even so, upon seeing this, Cleon regretted that he did not bring wooden towers, which would have allowed him to easily recapture the city.
Yes, there's quite a bit of subterfuge going on. So, the battle, spoilers, between Brasidas and Cleon was indicative of many changes that would soon affect Greek warfare. For example, the battle precipitated a change in how armies recruited their soldiers. Instead of recruiting soldiers hailing from a city's traditional elite, armies began hiring professional soldiers with skills worth paying for. This shift eventually led to the eventual introduction of bronze coins that could also be used by soldiers to purchase food from merchants, who also began accompanying armies to their campaigns. It's a Corinthian bronze helmet. Of course, it's all green and corroded now, but it's kind of would have looked cool when it was actually bronze. Well, actually bronze-like. You know, obviously it is still actually bronze, but right. So now we're on a battle site here, because yes, there was a battle.
Brasidas positioned his own troops in a nearby wooded area to get a better view of Cleon's army. When the Athenians began moving to set up camp, Brasidas returned to Amphipolis. He believed his army was less well trained than the Athenians and decided to rely instead on cunning tactics and Cleon's inexperience as a military leader. Brasidas organized a two-prong attack. He would personally lead a small raid, then one of his lieutenants would follow up with a second attack shortly after, disorienting the enemy. He had barely finished formulating his plan when he saw Cleon's army pack up and retreat back towards the coast. The cowardly display made Brasidas realize that perhaps victory would be easier than he thought.
But was that a boy? Who's this then? A marble head of a Greek general. According to Thucydides, Brasidas said the following to his men after spying on Cleon's forces. These men stay not for us, it is apparent by the wagging of their spears and of their heads. For where such motion is, they use not to stay for the charge of the enemy. Therefore open me some body the gates appointed, and let us boldly and speedily sally forth upon them. Wow, the language is flowery. So what's that? I mean, I got the last bit, which was open the doors and let's just charge at them. But these men stay not for us. It is apparent by the wagging of their spears and of their heads. For where such motion is, they use not to stay for the charge of the enemy. Yeah, I can't quite pass that bit. But I guess he's saying that maybe they're not expecting the enemy to charge. So basically, let's do that. Yeah. So this is why I didn't want to read the original Thucydides, because it's framed, I mean, it's translated, obviously, but it's framed in funny language that's hard to get my head around. So I'd rather read like a historian summary of that. And the Song of Wrath book is a very good one. It only covers the first Peloponnesian War, though, the first, like, this part, where that ends, basically, at Amphipolis. And unfortunately does not cover the rest of it, which is also kind of interesting. So I think I might have to grab the there's like a more complete volume of it by Kagan, I think, that's very famous, that's very well regarded. So I think I might have to pick up that for the rest of the story, but it's got that all in the epilogue, but it's not really the full thing. So, hang on, there's something over here. What's this? What are you? Hello? Oh, hey! Oh, there's a discovery site. Hoplite equipment. Again, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. What's this? Panoply of warriors from the army of the Seven before attacking Thebes. Red figure attributed to Macron. Okay. Hoplites were heavily armoured infantrymen. Their most important piece of equipment was arguably the aspis, a round shield large enough to protect both its wearer and the man to the left of it. The aspis was light and could effectively parry spear and sword thrusts. However, according to its depiction on ancient vases, it was ineffective against javelins and arrows. Hoplite helmets were similarly designed to be light, but they could endure direct blows and offered a reasonable amount of protection. There were many varieties of helmet, but the most widespread seems to have been the Corinthian helmet. Made of a single sheet of bronze that covered much of the head and neck, the Corinthian helmet offered only a small T-shaped opening at the front to allow soldiers to see and breathe. Because the helmet was closed in on itself, it most likely impaired the sight and hearing of the soldiers who wore it. Helmets could also be adorned with crests of dyed horsehair to make the hoplites wearing them look more imposing. Yeah, because that's interesting, because never clicked before, but like the helmets don't have like ear holes or anything, do they? So it would have been kind of tough to oh hey, we got Phoebe. Kind of tough to hear much through them. Cool, interesting. Okay, so we can just randomly find those. That's pretty neat. All right, let's carry on.
After seeing Brasidas' troops return to Amphipolis, Cleon decided to fall back to the port of Aeon and once again wait for reinforcements. Unfortunately, his exact orders were confusing and contradictory, which left the Athenian forces in disarray. Brasidas took advantage of this confusion and began his attack. Cleon's forces panicked, which made them easy prey for the Spartans. 600 Athenians were killed, while the Spartans only lost 7 men.
Yikes.
Cleon's remaining forces took refuge in Aeon, where the bodies of their comrades were eventually returned to them, though only after being stripped of their weapons.
That was generally important as well, because there was this whole thing of like, you know, you have to clear the battlefield of all the bodies and make sure that everyone comes back and collects them all and takes them back home. And it was generally not, it was considered quite bad to have to abandon the bodies or be forced to abandon them. So I think, well, I won't say it yet because it may spoil the end of this, but yeah, it was interesting that they said only 7 people, 7 Spartans died. So, Attic marble grave stele with a hoplite battle scene. Sparta had a complicated and ambiguous relationship with its Helot soldiers. Allegedly, Helots who proved their, or Helotes, who proved their worth in battle could be granted their freedom. One story tells of how 2,000 Helotes who showed great courage in the face of the enemy were crowned and sent off to sanctuaries to celebrate their freedom. However, all of these Helotes vanished soon after, having possibly been massacred by the Spartans. Yeah. They definitely didn't treat the... I mean, well, they had slaves, but, but they definitely did not treat them very well. And the funny thing is about the Helotes is that they pretty much ran... Like, they kept Spartan civilization going. Like, there was very few, comparatively, actual Spartans, like Spartan citizens. And most of them kept on buggering off the war. And they had kept on, they were always terrified that, like, the Athenians would instigate these Helotes revolts that would, cause them to rise up and overthrow, the Spartans. Which they did sometimes, and they had to go back and they put them down mercilessly and ruthlessly. So, yeah, it's kind of surprising how it all kind of held itself together. But it was largely because, the Spartans were also really good militarily and could just put that stuff down really easily. But, it didn't make their lives terribly comfortable or secure, put it that way.
During the pitched battle between the Spartans and the Athenians, both Brasidas and Cleon were killed. The reports of their respective deaths reflect how they were perceived as military leaders. We know almost nothing about Cleon's death, other than that he was killed by a Thracian soldier. Brasidas, meanwhile, survived long enough to be taken back to Amphipolis, where he was informed of his victory. He was buried inside the city, which was considered an honor bestowed only upon heroes, and was celebrated as the true founder of Amphipolis.
So, the thing I was going to not spoil was, apparently, if I remember rightly from the book, that raid where hundreds of the Athenians got killed and 7 Spartan men died, Brasidas was one of those 7. Unfortunately, he got wounded anyway, but it was grave enough that he wouldn't have been able to survive for long. But like they said, they carted him back to Amphipolis, and he lived long enough to know that they'd won. But yeah, Cleon went down like a punk apparently. So hang on. We missed the little map there. Can I get that back, or do I have to do that again?
During the pitched battle between...
Yep, there we go. Oops, yep, both down. Peloponnesian War appeared often in the plays of comic playwright Aristophanes, who we met. Aristophanes frequently criticized the war and those who encouraged it, such as Cleon. He ridiculed speakers who used verbal trickery to fool naive men, and emphasized the cruelty of war in contrast with women's desire for peace. So yeah. Which, funny enough, I mean, Brasidas, when did he get killed in the game? Was it up here? I think it was up here, wasn't it? Because, like, in the game, Alexios killed him. But yeah, it was here, and then we ran off towards the coast and fought Cleon, and then we killed him there, which obviously is not how it happened in reality. But you know, there's a lot of things that happened in the game not quite like reality. Like Pericles did not get assassinated; he died of the plague.
Spartans and the Athenians.
Okay.
The reports of their
Right, so skip that bit. Okay, so nearly done.
The Battle of Amphipolis temporarily put an end to the hostilities between Athens and Sparta. The Athenian forces returned to Piraeus, while Sparta called back the reinforcements they'd sent for Brasidas. The death of both Brasidas and Cleon encouraged the two cities to push for peace. The negotiations took time, but Sparta and Athens eventually agreed to return to the way things were before the Peloponnesian War. The resulting treaty became popularly known as the Peace of Nicias. Throughout the Greek world, it was mostly agreed that Sparta had lost the war, in spite of Brasidas' heroic efforts. The sentiment was rooted in the fact that Sparta had failed to end Athens' domination over Greece, something they had promised to do at the start of the war.
Which was kind of what they did, but not entirely. Like they there's a long running history of rivalry between states in ancient Greece, but and again, this is from historians, that I've read, so it may be their interpretation that I don't know, but from what I've read, Sparta was actually generally considered to be like the top dog in Greece. Like there was all these different city-states, but Sparta was generally considered to be like the one in the front, because they'd there was this whole sacrifice at Thermopylae with the 300, and there was various other things that they were generally kind of well respected for, and so on. And Athens was basically number two, and kind of wanted to be if not number one, then equal to Sparta. And the Spartans were like, no. And of course that led to honours being besmirched, and it's like, oh well, we got to go and put down these uppity upstarts. And then, but the thing with Pericles was he was very canny about how he fought the battles there, and it was all very much like, well, you strike at us, we'll strike at you, and we go back and forth like this, and we don't give you a reason to really come down hard on us. We'll just keep like skirmishing and ravaging each other's coasts and doing things like that. And eventually it kind of got out of hand, especially after Pericles died in the plagues, which were like 2 or 3 years after this whole thing started. And I think it was 429 or 428, something like that. But yeah, the plagues hit. Spartans went, we're not going anywhere near Athens while they've got this plague going on. Pericles died, and then Cleon came in after that, and went, right, well, we're or at least if not Cleon, then more more warlike elements came in after that and went, yeah, let's we're not going to have this kind of give and take thing. We're going to actually start pushing stuff, and then it became more like a proper full-on war, and there was all these battles all over the place, like cities rebellions being put down, actual battles and so on. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. So it wasn't as much Sparta wanting to end the Athenian domination of the Greek world or anything, because they weren't really dominating it, in their eyes anyway. Like, it was more like that it was this rivalry that Sparta thought it should be the one on top. Athens then went, hey, we should be as well. And then there was this conflict erupted over that, and it was basically about just who should be running, really should be like the main power in Greece. And at the end of it, really, Sparta may have lost this part of the war, but after this 50-year peace, it started up again. And it kicked off again, and there was, and this is the bit that I'm a bit fuzzier on because this wasn't covered in detail in the books, but after that it just they fought again, and I think Athens had this disastrous Sicily expedition, which really weakened them, and then Sparta managed to basically head up to what they call Hellespontus, up in the Dardanelles and all that, and cut off Athens' food supply, because it was all up there, or a lot of it was coming from up there, and that basically, he not only did that, but I think they actually kind of almost annihilated their navy as well, and at that point it was just Athens was done. So overall, Sparta won it, but Athens was defeated. But that didn't last long either, because then was it the Macedonians, I think, eventually just basically charged in and took over everything, and that was that basically. I may have got some details wrong there, but that's the broad overview of what I've read. Let's see if this has anything about it. Yeah, so the so-called 50-year peace lasted less than 6 years, which, the Second Peloponnesian War was not long after. This was mostly due to the fact that Athens was not held in high esteem in the rest of Greece. Aristocrats from other Greek cities in the Delian League hated the imposed annual tribute they had to pay Athens, and hated Athens' frequent intervention in their city's affairs. They were very imperialistic, pretty much. Furthermore, the glory Athens had earned at the battles of Marathon and Salamis had long since faded, overshadowed by the city's constant repression of all those who dared to rebel against its authority. Athens' unpopularity, along with the fact that it never managed to retake Amphipolis, ensured the peace was doomed from the start, and it wasn't long before the Peloponnesian War resumed. And when it resumed, it didn't go well for Athens in the end, and they eventually lost. But by that point, everyone was pretty much weakened and smashed, and that's referred to as the suicide of Greece, because they just basically just tore each other apart, and outsiders could just come in and pick up the pieces and go, yeah, well, you're done. So it's all rather interesting stuff. So let's see what Herodotus has to say, because I guess we're at the end of this one.
I see you're done with your tour. The Battle of Amphipolis may have briefly put an end to the Peloponnesian War, but the so-called Peace of Nikias was only temporary. It would not be long before Sparta and Athens came to blows once again. Now, is there something else you'd like to do?
Oh, there's a quiz. Oh, a short, light-hearted quiz. Ooh, shall we do that? I hope it's not like, what year did this happen? Because I'm crap at that, but sure. I'm ready for a quiz. Let's see.
Feeling up to a test? Then let us begin. Which Athenian politician wanted to negotiate peace with Sparta?
Oh, that's Nikias, wasn't it? Yeah. That, I think, would be Nikias.
Correct. Nikias wanted to build on the truce that was negotiated after Brasidas captured Amphipolis. Now for the second question. Where did Thucydides and Cleon arrive before moving to retake Amphipolis?
Oh, thank you for pronouncing his name properly. Ion.
Yes. Ion is where both Thucydides and Cleon's forces arrived before trying to retake the city. I have one last question for you. Amphipolis was located in which region?
Thrace. Oh, let's see how he pronounces it.
Yes. Amphipolis was located in Thrace.
There you go.
It seems there's nothing I can ask that you cannot answer. Congratulations, traveler.
There, see, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't Thrace. It wasn't Thucydides. There is no soft, like, C-S sound in Greek. You know, it's always like if you see anything in Greek written as a C, well, not any translation of a Greek word written as a C, it's pronounced as a K, because we don't have a C like that does that. You know, the only K sound we have is K. So it should be Thraki, and Thucydides is how he pronounced it, which is probably the correct way. I'd call him Thucydides, but it should be a K sound. Take me to the next suggested tour. Take me to a random tour. Sure, maybe to the next suggested one.
Your eagerness for more knowledge is admirable. Follow me, traveler.
That's where we gotta go. So is that the only one about the war? Because I'm hoping there was more about it, because the war was a lot more than just Amphipolis. Like, that was the end of the first war. But there's loads of stuff about Mytilene, and is it? What was the name of the one? Is it Potidia or Platidia? There was some little town basically where it all kicked off. Funny thing about Herodotus is that he's actually, I think he's kind of referred to as the father of history and stuff, but he wasn't often terribly accurate about it. He kind of had a tendency to muddle it up with fact and myth. There we go, press options to do that. I got Amphipolis, I've got Brasidas. So yeah, he was definitely had his heart in the right place, but he wasn't quite there. Whereas Thucydides generally, I think, was viewed as having a more kind of accurate representation of what actually was happening in the Peloponnesian War. So what are we? Oh, this is Spartan education and stuff. I think that's actually Grandpa. That's Leonidas. Which is pretty cool. But let's back off a bit here. Have a look around. Actually, they said press options. Oh, there we go. So Spartan education, battles and wars. There is, oh, there's more battles and wars. Ah, oh, we got Thermopylae. Oh, cool. Pylos Inspector. Oh, these were big ones. Marathon. Yeah, let's. Oh, you got the Thermopylae, which everyone knows about. If you know anything about Greek history, that's the 300. Pylos and Sphacteria were really, really interesting battles as well, though. That's actually a short one. Let's do the Pylos one. Because, yeah, they were really neat battles. The thing I think in Amphipolis, they also didn't mention here that I think the Spartans, they mentioned that the Spartans were up on a hill, but I think there was a fort there, and that's what Brasidas charged out of with his little raid there. But what was I going to say about that? Yeah, the thing about that was that Cleon basically marched past the fort. Like, it was like a little hillside fort that was kind of just outside Amphipolis, actually. And Brasidas and his Spartans were holed up in the fort. And Brasidas Cleon kind of marched around them and was kind of almost taunting them. But he didn't expect them, and I think that's what that quote was from, actually. He didn't expect them to attack him. He thought like he was just scaring the pants off them and all that. So all his soldiers were really kind of, slack and, not very disciplined. Oh god, this cat. And Brasidas saw this and went, right lads, let's jump him. And they charged out of that fort and absolutely caught them with their pants down. Like, the Athenians were just wrecked, and I think that's what they described here. Was that's where they had 700 or people dead to and the Spartans only lost 7. So that was a pretty interesting fight there as well. I wish they'd gone into a little bit more detail about that here, because it was just this, like, they were massively outnumbered as well. Like, Spartans were very outnumbered in this. But they just tore out of that fort and just smashed the Athenians completely. Which, again, is kind of why Brasidas is remembered as this big general hero and then was buried in the city, and Cleon just went down like a punk because he got taken out by a Thracian archer or a peltas or something like that. But yeah, I don't even know if they even retrieved his body, but yeah, it was a really interesting battle there. It's just ironic that both sides, the leaders got killed in it. Alright, so let's have a look at Pylos and Sphacteria.
Welcome to Pylos, traveler. This area, along with the nearby island of Sphacteria, were important battlegrounds during the Peloponnesian War.
Who are you? What do you think of this place?
I always find it a shame that such lovely-looking places were exposed to so much violence. It's difficult to take pleasure in relaxing on the sand, knowing how stained it is with blood.
That's a valid point. It'd be interesting. I don't know if there is like beaches and tourist stuff around here now, but it would be interesting being there, knowing what had happened.
The Peloponnesian War was a great conflict between rivals Sparta and Athens. It lasted many years and cost a great number of lives on both sides. The battles of Pylos and Sphacteria occurred almost one after the other, and culminated with one of the most surprising outcomes in the entire war. But I will not spoil it for you. You'll have to experience it on your own. I'll wait for you at the end of the tour.
So it's kind of weird as well that Cassandra doesn't appear to talk. I guess they couldn't get the voice actress back in or something, or... So I'm assuming this cat's not going to jump on me.
431 BCE, the Peloponnesian War had been raging between Athens, Sparta, and their allies, with neither side gaining much ground. But in 425 BCE, an Athenian general named Demosthenes changed that. After a storm forced his fleet to stop in Pylos, Demosthenes realized a military presence in the area would give them an advantage against Sparta. Unfortunately, the fleet strategists did not believe him, and left Demosthenes in Pylos with 5 triremes and 1,000 men. The Spartans, meanwhile, were too busy celebrating a religious festival to notice the enemy on their doorstep.
Well, that's the thing. Let me go see a map here. So in I'm not going to say BCE all the time because it's BCE. In 431, Sparta, a city with formidable military prowess, went to war with Athens, a city whose power came from its naval fleet and considerable financial resources. Athens demanded annual tributes from several Greek cities and frequently intervened in their affairs. Because of this, some of the cities had a grudge against Athens and consequently supported Sparta's cause. So, if I go here... here you can see Athens up in the north there, and Sparta in the Peloponnese in the south. And then the thing to realise about this is, like they said, right on Sparta's doorstep, on their back door, basically. Like this, like up here, off to the right on the map is, it's Laconia up there. So the Spartans were, once they realised this base was there, were obviously not too keen on its existence. We've seen this island in the game. We've been there several times. This is where, I think this is where we got captured by Alexios. We had that big fight where the forest was on fire and everything, and the tree fell on his head and on mine or something. But yeah, this was a pretty epic battle for us, and it was a pretty big battle for them too, in reality, as we shall see. I can just change the time of day if I want still, so that's good. So I guess otherwise, in this mode you can just wander around the whole world however you choose. I don't know if we've still got our ship, but we could probably do that. Here we are now. So we've gone from, by the way, all the way up here from Amphipolis all the way to the other side of Greece here. And okay, yeah, sorry, Messenia is in the way here, but it's it's not far between Laconia, which is where Sparta is, and the Sphacteria and Pylos. So has Kefalonia got any stuff there? No historical things. Right, so anyway, let's carry on.
Once Sparta discovered the Athenian presence on Pylos, the Spartan king Agis mustered his troops and fleet. Sparta then descended on Demosthenes' outpost, attacking from both the sea and the mainland. The Athenian general had to mount a hasty defense. He pulled his boats back to the foot of the ramparts and fixed them in place with stakes, providing extra cover. Then, going against all the established rules of battle, he descended with his hoplites to fight on the rocky shore, where he believed the Spartans would disembark. His gamble paid off, and the Spartans did indeed attempt to land at this location, though Demosthenes' forces made them hesitate. One of the Spartan leaders, Brasidas, decided to make the first move by ramming the rocks with his boat, exclaiming, "It's only a few planks." He paid for his actions when his shield slipped into the sea after descending from his boat, leaving him open to many blows. The battle raged on into the night and continued to the next day, remaining locked in a stalemate. However, on the evening of the second day, Athenian reinforcements arrived.
Athenians trapped. When the Peloponnesian War began in 431 BC, the Spartans faced a unique problem. Sparta's army consisted of incredibly skilled and formidable hoplites. As such, their military strategy normally involved ravaging their enemy's territory and forcing the opposing army to face them on the battlefield. This tactic wasn't effective against Athens, which was protected by considerable fortifications that stretched all the way to the city's port of Piraeus. Athens' population, as well as the peasants from surrounding areas, were well protected within the city's walls, leaving the Spartans with little to do. After a few weeks, they returned home to revise their strategy. That's a scene of a hoplite combat from a black figure Corinthian crater. So a crater is I think a crater is like a vase or one of those cup things or something like that, but I think it's a cup. So, also there's a constellation called Crater, which is a cup, I believe. That's probably from that. Or from that word. Jog, jog, jog. Now we go on to Sphacteria itself. So yeah, Brasidas was here as well. And he, yeah, that was quite an awesome thing to do. Just like, let's ram the ships onto the rocks and then disembark. Yeah. But yeah, it didn't work out too well for him. Although this was before
The sudden arrival of the Athenian fleet stacked the odds in Athens' favor. The fleet decided to hold off their attack until the next day, when they swarmed the Spartan ships. They successfully captured 5 enemy ships and damaged many others, cutting off access to the nearby island of Sphacteria. Then, to add insult to injury, the Athenians raised a stake hung with weapons they'd captured from the Spartans, including the shield of Brasidas. Meanwhile, the 420 Spartans on Sphacteria were trapped, and Sparta was completely helpless to rescue them.
Yeah, this was not a good place for them to be. So what's this? Chalcedony Scaraboid Gem, engraved of a ship with steersmen, oarsmen, and warriors. 525 to 500 BCE. So this is before the Peloponnesian War. So the bay where the Athenians arrived was incredibly vast, measuring 4 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. It was even large enough to accommodate the forces of England, Russia, France, and the Ottoman Empire during the Battle of Navarino in 1827 AD. What is that? 2,200 years later? Again, the span of history here is huge. So yeah, the Spartans being trapped here were not a good thing. Because I think up till this point, the Spartans usually, I don't know if they never had been, but were, I think considered at least to have never been defeated in battle.
With 420 of their men trapped on Sphacteria, Sparta needed to reevaluate their position. The Spartans on the island were essentially the Athenians' hostages, and Sparta could not move to rescue or resupply them without putting their lives in danger. In an effort to save the trapped soldiers, the Spartan leadership negotiated an immediate truce with the Athenian strategists. Sparta agreed to hold back its fleet and halt their attacks on Pylos, and in return, the Athenians permitted them to send supplies to their men. In the meantime, Sparta sent ambassadors to Athens to try and negotiate a better deal. The hasty truce greatly humiliated Sparta, as they were forced to recognize just how helpless their infantry was in the face of an Athenian fleet.
Yeah. And of course the Athenians were like we've got them where we want them, ha ha ha. You know, so yeah. I think the truce thing didn't really go that well. So, Spartans trapped. The Spartan general Brasidas was renowned for his ingenuity and quick thinking. In addition to coming up with the idea of ramming ships into Pylos, Brasidas would eventually realise that the best way to win the Peloponnesian War was not to fight Athens directly, but to attack the city through its allies. So yeah, this, I think if I remember rightly, this truce did not really work out that well. So I think, yeah, now I'm thinking about it, I don't know if it was that Sparta hadn't been defeated, but they never, I think they hadn't surrendered or anything like that before. You know, it definitely dented their renown as, you know, these mighty warriors, though.
To bargain for the safety of their men, Sparta sent ambassadors to Athens to propose a cessation of hostilities. The ambassadors tried to emphasize that their situation was not a result of strategic incompetence or lack of strength, but rather plain bad luck. According to them, the Spartans on Sphacteria did not deserve to suffer further, because they were trapped through no fault of their own. These statements provoked the ire of Cleon, a popular Athenian politician known for his populist speeches. Cleon insisted that the terms of negotiations be discussed openly before the assembly and the Athenian people, instead of in private. The Spartan ambassadors were not as comfortable with public speaking as the Athenians, so they decided to leave.
That's it. Cleon was basically an asshole. Cleon was well known in Athens for frequently demanding violent or drastic solutions to situations discussed in the assembly. Sounds familiar. For example, in 428, after Mytilene, one of Athens' most powerful allies, unsuccessfully revolted, Cleon demanded the death of its inhabitants as punishment. Athens eventually decided against this course of action, but Cleon continued to gain power and influence over the city's politics. Yeah, he was a complete Fruit Loop. Generally, I think when we Cassandra actually kills him in the game, I think I was quite glad to get rid of him. But yeah, I didn't like him much in the game either. Populist, very sort of militant kind of guy. Again, as happens, 2,400 odd years ago, we get the same kind of people around in charge of countries today. So, more things change, the more they stay the same. So, what happened next?
Following the failed attempts of the Spartan ambassadors, hostilities resumed. Back in Athens, Cleon took matters into his own hands. After being elected general, or strategos, he left to join the ongoing battle, accompanied by javelin-armed infantry and archers. With renewed strength and numbers, the Athenians landed on Sphacteria and engaged their enemy. The battle was hard-fought, but they eventually managed to surround the remaining Spartans. It was then that Cleon invited the Spartans to surrender, as he hoped to return to Athens with prisoners. The Spartans were exhausted after spending 72 days on the island, so they accepted Cleon's offer and laid down their arms. A Spartan capitulation had previously been unheard of, and the news of their surrender echoed throughout Greece like thunder.
Let's see if I was going to say something. Let's see if the text that says it. Attack on Sphacteria. The Athenian force that landed on Sphacteria was made up of hoplites, but also light infantry, archers, and peltasts. This gave them an edge over the Spartan army, which adhered to the usual strategy of forming its hoplites into a phalanx. The Spartan hoplites tried advancing on the Athenian hoplites, but were consistently harassed on all sides by the Athenian light infantry. Whenever the Spartans tried fighting back, the light infantry, unburdened by heavy armor, would flee to safety and then return to harass them again. Eventually, the Spartans were forced to retreat to an old fort, and then they surrendered soon after. So, the interesting thing about this, and I don't know if it will mention it in the last thing, was that Sparta, I think, had basically told the commanders on Sphacteria, do what you think. I forgot what the exact phrase was, but do what you think a Spartan would do, or something like that, or what's best for Sparta, or something like that. But they basically left it up to the commander, who essentially just went, well, bugger this, I'm not going to get our people killed. So he went, okay, you got us, and surrendered, which was, as they said, completely unheard of in Spartan combats and history. Like they didn't surrender, they usually won. So yeah, this was particularly, and it's probably the better thing for them to do, because it meant that there wasn't a massive massacre. But it was a shockwave throughout the Greek world.
The Spartans' capitulation completely changed the course of the Peloponnesian War. Athens used their new prisoners of war as leverage and threatened to execute them if Sparta ever returned to pillage their lands. This gave the Athenians the freedom to conduct their own raids, which were aided further by their eventual seizing of the island of Kythera. Sparta tried to negotiate for peace, but were unsuccessful. Cleon, meanwhile, was emboldened by his victory and continued to gain popularity with the Athenian people. Popularity that translated to power.
So, consequences. The Spartan prisoners captured after the Battle of Sphacteria were not forgotten by their city. During the negotiations for the Peace of Nicaeas in 421 BC, Sparta requested that Athens free the prisoners. I don't know if they actually did, but they probably did. But yeah, and the thing about that as well was Spartan, they took hostages all the time, and used them as leverage, the Athenians and the Spartans. And the thing with the Spartans again was that a lot of the Spartans were actually important people in Sparta as well. So they were nobles or sons of nobles or whatever, or maybe not nobles, but higher ups anyway. They were important people, and so they couldn't just say, yeah, sure, they're expendable, whatever. So they had to negotiate, and then they were usable as leverage. The other thing, just to mention, that whole thing that Cleon was wanting to punish Mytilene by killing all its inhabitants was not an uncommon thing. They really, when cities revolted, the punishment they got afterwards if they failed in their revolt or were recaptured was horrific. And this is on both sides. This is, the Spartans have the big reputation as, they have the slaves and they're horrible people, etc. But the Athenians were as bad in that era. They were not like the bastions of democracy that everyone makes them out to be. They were pretty brutal and would also have no qualms about wiping out cities just to prove a point. So there's definitely shades of grey all around on this one. It's not just the Spartans were bad and the Athenians were good. It's nothing like that at all, because history is never, ever just straightforward black and white. There's always, nuances and shades of grey and things like that. So, and this is no exception to that. Even though it's, a lot fuzzier in terms of, because it's so long ago, it's still the popular conceptions of this period are not necessarily correct. You know, I mean, we like to think of the Spartans as being oh, they're super heroic, and you know, they, especially with things like the 300, you know, they're like admirable culture and all that stuff. Well, you know, they weren't really. I mean, in the game, obviously, I'm sort of kind of getting into character and rooting for Sparta and going boo, here's to the Athenians and all that. But you know, reality, Spartans were, you know, not what we would consider great people in terms of how they treated others, and you know, they had slaves and, you know, very militant kind of society and so on. The Athenians also had slaves. You know, they also had corruption and, you know, violent, you know, very sort of extreme retaliations for things and so on. So, you know, it's all, you know, you've got to look at everything as not being as straightforward as it was. And that applies to all periods of history. Everything that, you know, from, well, you know, everything, like World War II even, you know, we like to think of the, you know, the Allies were the good guys and the Germans were the bad guys. Well, the Allies did some great things and they did some bad things as well. Germans didn't do so many good things, but, you know, the point is that you know, it's not always just clear cut good guys and bad guys. There's things that occasionally that the bad guys do that weren't so bad. There's things that the good guys do that are definitely bad. And it's all where you gotta look at it through the lens of what was going on at the time. Like, you know, was there total war going on? Was it, you know, did everyone really hate each other? You know, would they be able to justify it at the time, even though we may think of those justifications as wrong now? You know, I mean, it's all got to be viewed from the lens of what was going on at the time and what people were feeling and doing and thinking at the time. And it doesn't excuse it. It's just that's how it is. That's how it was. That's how they thought. That's what they did. You know, so let's see what Herodotus thinks now.
I hope you enjoyed learning about the battles of Pylos and Sphacteria. The battles were hard fought by both sides, but Athens' victory gave them an enormous boost in morale. It encouraged them to be more aggressive, and it was some time before Sparta recovered from the aftershocks of their historic surrender. Now, is there anything else you'd like to do?
I'd like to have a quiz.
I'm happy to oblige. Let's begin. Where were Demosthenes and his fleet forced to land during a storm?
This is an interesting one. I think it was Pylos, wasn't it? Not Sphacteria.
Yes.
Yeah.
Demosthenes landed at Pylos, where he was inspired to set up an outpost. On to the second question. Which famous Athenian argued with the peace-seeking Spartan ambassadors?
Oh, that Cleon, innit? Yeah.
Correct. Cleon demanded the terms of the peace be discussed in front of the Athenian assembly, which greatly dissuaded the ambassadors. One last question. Which Spartan general rammed Pylos with his ship?
Oh, that'd be Brasidas.
Correct. Brasidas ordered his ship to ram the rocks and lost his shield in the process. You've passed the test. Well done, traveler.
Yay. Okay, I think I'll say that's all for now.
Then I will say farewell. Though I hope our paths will cross again someday.
Yay. Got some discovery sites as well. So yeah, it was nice to see Herodotus again anyway. So I guess let's have a little wander. But I'm probably going to leave it there pretty much soonish anyway, because I mean there's tons to look through here. I don't really have all the time in the world to go through it all, but you know, I will definitely check all this out later on. But it's pretty good. I like how they've done it. I do like how they've laid it all out. Oh yeah. Right. Oh, it's sort of Phobos. Well, horsey then. Let's try not to run over. So I'm guessing maybe there's something down here. So I guess we're in non-combat mode, so everyone's all kind of fine with us being here and they're not going to jump on me. So yeah, where's this discovery site thing? Can we see where they are? Even? They were saying there's like 6 of them, but I don't know where those are. All icons. Yeah, I don't know if it actually shows us where they are. Oh, they're right at the bottom here. There's 2 right at the bottom. Okay, let's go the other way. Up. Hi, Herodotus. Yeah, I would have a look at some of the other ones, but it's kind of getting a bit. I'm getting a bit hungry. It's dinner time here. So I'll leave those. Thank you, doggies. What are you then? Ooh, Thucydides. There he goes. That's Thucydides. Ah. Oh, that's fascinating. Roman copy of a 5th century original. That's from the 2nd century. So that's a bust made of him 300 years after the original bust was made. So, Thucydides was an Athenian aristocrat, general, and historian who chronicled the history of the Peloponnesian War. While he does not mention his predecessor Herodotus directly, it is probable that Thucydides was influenced by the so-called father of history. Thucydides' account of history, however, focused less on the mythic origins of the Greeks, and instead provided a perspective on how much the Greek world had evolved since its beginning, and also how much it would continue to evolve into the future. His work also provided insight into the educational and cultural development of Athens. Thucydides was a skilled orator, trained by some of the best speakers of his time. Because of this, many of the most important moments in his historical writings are presented as speeches. Probably the biggest of which was the funeral. Was it the funeral? What do they call it? The funeral speech or something like that. That Pericles made. So we got another one here. Nope. Okay. Does that just mean it's done then? Okay, it just means it's done. Oh, so is this the ships rammed up on the rocks then? Maybe that's what that was. Ah. Cool. Sea battles. From our art book, which you can buy at all bookshops, but that's pretty cool. I like that. Waging war in the ocean was a brutal affair in ancient Greece. The ships, mostly triremes, were simply designed and unstable, especially in high seas and adverse weather. The development team looked at historical accounts of naval warfare from the period to recreate the drama and danger in the game. Blue-clad Athenians have their ship cleaved in two in concept art by Hugo Puzzuoli. Oh yeah, that's been sheared, isn't it? Although are they the Athenians? No, they're not the Athenians here, are they? Like, the guys doing the cleaving seem to be wearing red helmets, so I don't know what's going on there, but it's a bit hard to see. But yeah, and the naval battles as well. Like what we've done in the game here. Obviously, there's a bit more fantasy, like because I mean we got javelins and the arrows and you know stuff like that. But you know it's obviously their ships couldn't turn on a dime like our ones could in the game. So yeah, there was I take that no. There was a bit of artistic license going on there that made it more exciting. There have actually been some board games about the ancient naval battles, but there aren't that many. Like there's one called War Galley that is long out of print that I could get if I wanted to spend a small fortune on it, but it's not the best looking war game ever made. It's very dry. But it does have the sorts of things that they were doing, which was like, you know, cleaving ships and what did they call it? There was a name that they had. I forgot what the name of it, but it was like shearing off the oars was another tactic that they did. They'd actually come past each other, the ships, but close enough that the ship would just smash through all the other ship's oars and they'd be like just floating there, kind of go around in circles basically. So yeah, which we didn't do in the game here, but yeah, I would really like that. And I think there are a couple of ancient naval war games in the works that from various smaller companies, but I've not seen what they're going to be like, but I'd be interested to have a war game about that. So what happens if we talk to Herodotus again?
I hope you enjoyed learning about the battles of Pylos and Sphacteria. The battles were hard fought by both sides. It encouraged them now.
So it's just the other one.
I will say farewell. Though I hope our paths will cross again someday.
Right. So yeah. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how those turn out. So I think I'm going to leave it there, really. I just wanted to do a little video showing off the discovery mode and just finding out what that was about. So I will probably I'll just hide under here. I will probably come back to that and look at it at my leisure, really. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I'm sure the cultural stuff is interesting as well. But yeah, there we go, really. So that's basically it from me for Assassin's Creed Odyssey on the streams. That's essentially it for the streams, because I think, like I said, I want to have a break, and if I start up again, I think I am going to just make videos like this, which will go up on YouTube, rather than live streaming. I'll see how I feel. You know, I've been known to change my mind about this in the past, but I think just streaming, streaming is a bit more kind of restrictive, almost like, you know, I have to like do it every time at a certain day, you know, on a certain day, and it's, you know, it's also live. Whereas if I make videos, I can like do it whenever I feel like it. I can edit them, you know, if I wanted to. So I'm probably going to give that a go. May or may not continue doing computer games. I probably will. I'll probably do some smaller ones or something, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to live stream, say, The Last of Us 2 or whatever. I might just do videos of it, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll have something on my Twitter once I figured out what I want to do. But for now, I'm just going to have a break. So again, thank you for watching all of the Assassin's Creed Odyssey videos. If you have, if you haven't, there's 61 episodes previous to this where I go through the whole plot of the main story and the First Blade DLC. I didn't cover Fate of Atlantis because we tried that and I didn't really like it that much, so I'm capping it there. And I eventually did get the platinum in the end, in the last episode. But yeah, this was a look at the Discovery Tour. Definitely would like to check more of that out. But I encourage you to as well, because the history of this period is quite rich. Lots of stuff going on in it, and it's pretty interesting. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. So keep an eye out on the Twitter for any updates on what I'm doing, what I'm streaming, or what I'm making videos of, recording videos of. And yeah, we'll see where this goes. Alright then, so with that, I will thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta!